Welcome to Beyond the Box Score, the home for sports fans who want more than just highlights. We break down the games, the numbers, the betting angles, and the stories behind every matchup. If you're ready to see the game the way the insiders do, you're in the right place. The first game on the Monday, August 18th slate sets the stage with a divisional clash at Wrigley Field, as the Chicago Cubs host the Milwaukee Brewers in the opening game of a doubleheader. Anytime you have two teams battling for positioning in the National League Central, you're going to get intensity, and this one should be no different. The Cubs and Brewers know each other inside and out, which often means we see tighter games, bullpen usage becomes magnified, and managerial decisions carry more weight. Add in the fact that it's the first of two games on the day, and we could see both lineups take slightly different approaches depending on how deep their starters go in this opener. For the Cubs, the expected starter in this game is right-hander Shota Imanaga. He's been one of the more reliable arms in the Cubs' rotation throughout the season, bringing consistency with his command and ability to limit hard contact. Imanaga has been a strike thrower, working around the zone with precision, and his ERA has been hovering in the low 3.00 range while keeping his whip under 1.10. His strikeout numbers per 9 innings are solid, often in that 9.0 to 9.5 range, and he's been especially effective at Wrigley Field where he can use the home crowd energy to pound the zone early. One of the keys for Imanaga in this matchup will be how he handles the Brewers' lefty bats, because Milwaukee has been sneaky effective with their left-handed hitting this season. Against lefties, opposing hitters are batting under .220, which is a strength he'll need to lean on in this divisional game. On the other side, the Brewers are expected to counter with Freddie Peralta, and anytime you see him on the mound you know the strikeout potential is high. Peralta has always had electric stuff with a fastball-slider combination that can miss bats in bunches. His strikeout rate this year has hovered above 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, and in games where his control is sharp, he can be almost unhittable. The issue for Peralta has been occasional lapses with command, leading to higher pitch counts and more walks than he'd like. His ERA has floated in the mid to upper 3.00s, but the underlying metrics still suggest he's better than his surface stats. Against the Cubs this season, Peralta has had mixed results, showing flashes of dominance but also getting tagged by their power bats when he falls behind in counts. One of the most important matchups to watch here is Peralta against Cody Bellinger and Ian Happ, both of whom have the ability to run into a mistake fastball and change the game with one swing. From a betting perspective, this game becomes fascinating because of the doubleheader angle. Oddsmakers often tighten numbers on early games, especially with two solid starting pitchers on the mound. The total has typically been set in the 7.5 to 8 range for games between these two teams at Wrigley this season, and the under has cashed more often than not in this matchup when the weather conditions aren't favoring hitters. Wrigley Field is notorious for its wind factor, so before making a play on the total, you always have to check which way the wind is blowing. If the wind is blowing in, you can almost bank on a low-scoring pitcher's duel. If it's blowing out, suddenly every fly ball has home run potential and overs become live. Early indications for this day suggest neutral wind conditions, which makes me lean under 8 with two strong pitchers taking the ball in the opener. When we look at the money line, the Cubs have been a tough team to back consistently this season, hovering around .500, but they've been better at home, and Imanaga has been one of their most trustworthy arms. The Brewers, on the other hand, have been the more consistent team overall, sitting several games over .500 and holding a slight edge in the division race. The betting line is likely to be close to a pick'em, with maybe the Brewers a slight road favorite given Peralta's strikeout upside. That said, in a divisional matchup where both pitchers can be effective, I lean toward the home dog in the Cubs, especially in Game 1 of a doubleheader when familiarity can sometimes play into the hitter's hands the second or third time through the order. Looking at props, the strikeout markets stand out immediately. Peralta has been a strikeout machine, and his K-prop will likely be set around 7.5. He's capable of getting there, but the Cubs as a team have been more disciplined lately, cutting down on strikeouts against right-handed pitching. That makes me lean under on his strikeout prop in this spot, as I think the Cubs will look to work counts and drive his pitch total up early. On the other side, Imanaga's strikeout prop is usually in the 5.5 to 6.5 range, and that's where I'd look to the over, given Milwaukee has a tendency to swing and miss against left-handed pitching. He's had multiple games this season of 7 or more strikeouts, and with the Brewers' aggressive approach, I can see him clearing that number. For total bases props, Cody Bellinger is always worth a look in this kind of matchup. He has the ability to change the game with one swing, and his total bases line will usually sit at 1.5. I like the over there if you're looking for an offensive angle. For the Brewers, William Contreras has been one of their more consistent bats, hitting for both average and power. His ability to put the ball in play makes him a good candidate to go over his 1.5 total bases line as well. These are the kinds of plays that can be paired into a same-game parlay for added value. Speaking of same-game parlays, one angle I like for this opener would be a low-scoring game with strong pitching. A sample SGP could look like this: Cubs moneyline, Imanaga over 5.5 strikeouts, and under 8 runs. That gives you a correlated parlay with 3 legs that make sense together. Another variation could be Brewers moneyline, Contreras to record 2+ total bases, and Peralta under 2.5 earned runs. That way you're tying in a pitcher performance prop with a hitter prop for additional value. In terms of the final prediction, I lean toward the Cubs in Game 1. Imanaga has been the more consistent pitcher in terms of limiting damage, and while Peralta can rack up strikeouts, he's also more prone to giving up the long ball when his command falters. At Wrigley, even a couple of mistakes can turn into 2 or 3 run shots quickly. With the Cubs at home and looking to set the tone for the doubleheader, I'll take Chicago in a tight, low-scoring battle. My final score prediction is Cubs 4, Brewers 3, with Imanaga outdueling Peralta by just enough to grab the win. The second matchup on Monday's board brings us to PNC Park, where the Pittsburgh Pirates welcome in the Toronto Blue Jays. Interleague matchups like this always provide an interesting layer to the betting conversation because the two teams don't see each other often, and the differences in league playstyles can show up when American League lineups with the DH come into National League parks. The Pirates have quietly been competitive this season, sitting near the .500 mark, while the Blue Jays have been fighting for position in the AL East, which continues to be one of the toughest divisions in baseball. Both of these clubs have had streaky stretches, but the Game 1 matchup sets up to be an intriguing pitcher's duel in a park that generally suppresses offense. On the mound for the Pirates is Jared Jones, one of the more exciting young arms in the National League. Jones has been a breakout performer this season, flashing both velocity and command that gives Pittsburgh real optimism about their future rotation. His fastball regularly sits in the upper 90s, and he pairs it with a sharp slider that's become his go-to strikeout pitch. Through his first 20+ starts, Jones has posted an ERA around 3.30 with a whip under 1.15, and his strikeout rate sits just shy of 10 per 9 innings. He's been particularly effective at home, where the dimensions of PNC Park give him some extra margin for error on fly balls. The key for Jones will be whether he can navigate a Toronto lineup that has plenty of right-handed power. Against righties, Jones has still held opponents under a .220 batting average, but the Blue Jays do not lack hitters capable of punishing mistakes, and his ability to command the fastball up in the zone will dictate his success. For Toronto, the ball goes to Kevin Gausman, who continues to be one of the most reliable strikeout pitchers in the American League. Gausman has been steady, though not as dominant as his peak seasons, carrying an ERA in the mid-3.00s with a strikeout rate that still hovers near 11 per 9 innings. His splitter remains one of the most unhittable pitches in baseball, and when it's on, he's virtually unhittable. The issue for Gausman this year has been occasional inconsistency with fastball command, leading to more hard contact than usual and a higher home run rate. Against the Pirates, he should find a favorable matchup on paper because Pittsburgh has been one of the weaker lineups in baseball against right-handed pitching, batting around .230 as a team with limited slugging. That said, the Pirates have a few hitters in Bryan Reynolds and O'Neal Cruz who can make Gausman pay if he misses location. From a betting perspective, this game is shaping up to be a classic low-scoring interleague duel. The total has been projected around 8 runs, and with 2 quality starters on the mound, the under is going to be an attractive angle. PNC Park historically leans toward unders, particularly when good pitchers are involved, because the deep outfield dimensions suppress home runs. The Blue Jays have seen the under cash in more than 55% of their road games this season, while the Pirates have leaned slightly under at home as well. Unless the bullpens completely collapse, I think this projects closer to a 3-2 or 4-3 type game, so under 8 is where my initial lean sits. On the money line, the Blue Jays will come in as road favorites, likely around -140 to -150 depending on the final lineups. That makes sense given Gausman's track record and the more dangerous Toronto lineup on paper. But Pittsburgh has been profitable as a home underdog this year, covering the run line in more than half of those spots. Jared Jones also has the kind of upside to completely neutralize a visiting lineup, especially one that hasn't seen him much. If you're looking at value, the Pirates on the plus 1.5 run line makes a lot of sense, particularly in a game where runs should be at a premium. For props, both pitchers are the obvious starting point. Gausman's strikeout prop will likely be set at 6.5 or 7.5, and with the Pirates' tendency to chase out of the zone, especially against quality off-speed pitches, the over is live. Jones, meanwhile, will see his strikeout prop likely in the 5.5 to 6.5 range. Toronto's lineup is more disciplined, but they still strike out at a decent clip, especially against high-velocity righties. If you trust his stuff in this spot, the over on Jones' strikeouts has upside, but it's riskier because Toronto doesn't expand as often as most lineups. I lean Gausman over on Ks as the safer prop play. For hitters, Bryan Reynolds continues to be the most consistent offensive player for Pittsburgh, and his total bases prop of 1.5 is always worth a look, even against a tough pitcher. He's a switch hitter who can adjust well to Gausman's splitter, and he's the best candidate in this lineup to drive in runs. On the Toronto side, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been heating up again, and his total bases prop of 1.5 is worth targeting. He's hitting over .280 against right-handers this season and has the power to take advantage if Jones makes a mistake up in the zone. If you're looking for a sneaky option, Dalton Varsho could also provide value as he's been seeing the ball better of late and brings some speed along with extra base hit potential. For a same-game parlay angle, you could build one around pitching dominance. A safe 3-leg build would be under 8 runs, Gausman over 6.5 strikeouts, and Pirates plus 1.5 on the run line. That gives you correlation with a low-scoring, close game decided late. Another variation if you want to lean Blue Jays could be Toronto moneyline, Guerrero Jr. to record 2+ total bases, and Gausman to allow under 2.5 earned runs. Both of those builds tie directly into the way this matchup profiles. When it comes down to the prediction, this feels like a close, grind-it-out kind of game. Gausman has the experience and track record to give Toronto the edge, but Jared Jones has been sharp enough that I don't expect the Pirates to get blown out at home. The bullpens could play a major role in deciding this one late, and while Toronto's relief corps has been shaky at times, their offense should eventually scratch across just enough. My lean is Blue Jays 4, Pirates 3, in a tight contest where both starters do their jobs, the under cashes, and the Pirates keep it close enough to cover the run line. The third game on Monday's MLB card takes us to Loandapac Park in Miami, where the Marlins will host the Cardinals in an early evening matchup that could have very different stakes for these two teams. Street Lewis has been pushing for a postseason spot in the National League, while the Marlins have been sliding down the standings, more focused on developing young talent than making a serious playoff push. That dynamic often shows up in these kinds of late-season games. One team is fighting for October while the other is playing spoiler, which makes for tricky handicapping angles. The pitching matchup here features a pair of right-handers with very different profiles. For Miami, it's Edward Cabrera, a starter with electric stuff but inconsistent results. Cabrera has one of the best raw arsenals on the Marlins staff, featuring a mid to upper 90s fastball and a devastating changeup, but his biggest issue has always been command. His ERA this season has hovered around the high 4.00s with a whip over 1.35, mostly because of free passes. Cabrera has walked over 4.5 batters per 9 innings, which has consistently put him in trouble even when his strikeout numbers look impressive. He still averages better than 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but until he trims the walks, he remains a high-variance pitcher. At home, Cabrera has been slightly more reliable, with opponents hitting around .230 against him in Miami, but the walks don't go away regardless of where he pitches. Against a disciplined Cardinals lineup, that could be a problem. On the other side, Lewis is expected to send out Miles Mikolas, who has been the definition of steady but unspectacular. Mikolas doesn't blow hitters away. His strikeout rate sits at only about 6.5 per 9 innings, but he consistently works deep into games and limits damage by throwing strikes and relying on ground balls. His ERA this season has floated in the mid 4.00s with a whip around 1.30, and while he's not dominant, he has value as an innings eater in a Cardinals rotation that has needed stability. Mikolas's key is always limiting hard contact early in counts. When he keeps the ball down, he can pitch to contact effectively, but when he leaves pitches up, he becomes very hittable. The Marlins aren't known for their offensive firepower, but they have a couple of hitters like Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Jake Burger who can do damage against pitches left in the zone. From a betting perspective, this is a fascinating game because neither starting pitcher inspires full confidence. The Cardinals will likely be road favorites in the -130 to -140 range because they have the better overall record and the more consistent lineup, but Miami has been a team that quietly cashes tickets as a home underdog, especially when their young starters miss bats. The total should open around 8.5, and with Cabrera's wildness and Mikolas's contact-heavy profile, runs could certainly be on the table. That said, Loandapot Park is a pitcher-friendly environment, particularly for right-handers, as the deep dimensions keep balls in the yard. The under has hit in more than 55% of Marlins home games this season, and if Cabrera can avoid the walk trouble, it may trend lower scoring. But given the volatility of these pitchers, the over 8.5 might be the sharper play because bullpens could come into play early. Looking at player props, strikeouts stand out with Cabrera. His strikeout prop will likely be set at 5.5 or 6.5, and with his swing and miss arsenal, he can get there against any lineup. The risk is always his pitch count. If he walks 3 or 4 guys in the first few innings, he may not last long enough to hit the over. Still, the upside makes the over on strikeouts intriguing, especially against a Cardinals team that can be aggressive early in counts. For Mikolas, his strikeout prop is usually just 3.5 or 4.5, and the under is often live because he simply doesn't miss many bats. If you're looking for a low-juice prop, Mikolas under 4.5 kiloseconds makes a lot of sense here. For hitting props, Jazz Chisholm Jr. is always worth monitoring for total bases. He brings power and speed, which means he can clear 1.5 total bases with either an extra base hit or a couple of singles and a stolen base. Against Mikolas's contact-heavy style, Jazz has a real chance to find success. Jake Burger is another Miami hitter to target, as he's been the Marlins' most consistent source of power against right-handed pitching, slugging over .450 in those matchups this season. On the Cardinals' side, Nolan Arenado is always a threat against pitchers who struggle with control because he rarely chases bad pitches and punishes mistakes in the zone. His total bases prop of 1.5 is worth a look. Brendan Donovan also provides value as a table setter who can string together multi-hit games, especially against pitchers who fall behind in counts. When we think about same-game parlays, the volatility of Cabrera makes for both high upside and high risk. One angle could be to build a contrarian parlay around a low-scoring game, under 8.5 runs, Michaelis under 4.5 strikeouts, and Berger to record 1+ hit. That ties in the idea that Michaelis will pitch to contact, limiting Ks, while the game overall stays within a low total. On the flip side, if you expect Cabrera's command issues to blow up, you could build a Cardinals-focused parlay, Street Lewis moneyline, Arenado over 1.5 total bases, and Cabrera to allow over 2.5 earned runs. That correlates directly with a Cardinals win driven by their offense. As for the prediction, this feels like a game where the Cardinals' experience and discipline ultimately win out. Cabrera is always capable of looking dominant for a few innings, but over the course of a start, the walks tend to catch up to him. Michaelis may not strike fear into anyone, but he should be able to navigate a Marlins lineup that lacks consistent production. The bullpens tilt slightly toward Street Lewis as well, which gives them another late-game edge. I'll lean with the Cardinals in this one, taking them on the money line while also giving a nod to the over 8.5 as both pitchers are liable to put their pens into the game early. My final score prediction is Cardinals 6, Marlins 4, with St. Louis scratching across runs steadily and Miami unable to capitalize on Cabrera's strikeout upside enough to overcome the free passes. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown, prediction, or betting edge. Join the community of fans who always stay one step ahead, only here on Beyond the Box Score.